Hey everybody, how's it going? I am attorney Michael Eline, and I am an attorney licensed in both California and Texas. And I do primarily motorcycle accidents and car and bus truck type accidents, but I also do civil rights, and I am a big time natural law theorist. And so some of you are my subscribers and you've seen me coming on regularly to talk about things because I'm an activist and I like to talk about the Bill of Rights, John Locke, natural law, Thomas Aquinas, and all the things that made America such a wonderful place and a magnet for everyone in the world to want to come to. And we can see the big brother administrative state on the opposite end of the pond in full battle mode the last couple of days. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about, can the United Kingdom police extradite keyboard warriors from the United States who are kind of trash talking the UK police or making fun of the government for importing Islamic jihadists into their country and basically putting them over their own citizens. You know, a lot of the people are saying there's a two-tier justice system because the UK police are terrified and their government is terrified of being called racist. So they would rather placate these, what a lot of people call foreign invaders or boat people, right? Who the government invites in, immediately puts them on welfare, and then they don't work. And that's kind of, the locals are upset about it. It's sort of a mirror image of what's happening with our wide open southern border in the United States, where they're flooding our country with illegal aliens from Central America, communist China, all over the world, just pouring right through and immediately getting a cell phone, getting free hotel. And it's a globalist thing. And it's all being funded by and sponsored by organizations like the WEF and, you know, Bill Gates and Buffett and all those guys, the usual suspects, right? And the UK has decided to side with the visitors, with the guests, according to the locals, whereas Ireland is taking a different approach. And it's really interesting. So we're going to break that down as well, just to show you the disparity between Ireland and the UK. And you can definitely see the difference. I mean, Ireland still has that streak of independence since the IRA, you know. And they're fed up. They're fed up with all of the rapes and the murders and the cultural differences where the visitors don't adopt to their culture, but instead bring their, you know, archaic cultures where they treat women like second-class citizens into their countries. And the women are terrified to walk on the streets alone. And virtually everywhere they have these immigration centers. And so in the UK, what ended up happening is there were about 1,400 attacks against children, all emanating from this immigration center. And the BBC, the UK press, refused to report on it because it might incite some kind of violence or something. And so over time, the locals got upset. And eventually it looks like this Rwandan went ahead, and I guess he wasn't even Muslim, but they didn't care because he's the son of some Rwandan immigrants. So he was close enough for the locals to where they got pissed off. And I guess for the 1,400 plus attacks against their children, that was the straw that broke the camel back. So the BBC is trying to focus on the fact that this person wasn't even really Muslim, and therefore everything's a straw man, and this shouldn't have happened. And the people that are posting this on social media incited a riot, and it's really their fault. It's the local natives who are upset about all these attacks, posting about it on social media. It's their fault, and therefore they need to be locked up. And that is sort of right out of a George Orwell novel. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree with that. And so what we're going to do really quick now is just let you hear from the horse's mouth what this UK police officer, I guess he's the chief of their police. And we sort of talked about this a little bit the other night, but this guy is like their head guy. He's the Metro Police Chief. And his name is, let me see if I can find it really quick. I can't find it, but I'll get to it. I did an article that we're going to go over. But this guy is your typical, like right out of like Third Reich, Joseph Goebbels, you know, exactly right out of that book. It's just hilarious, you know, and they say that your enemies will accuse you of what they're doing. So every time people like this call somebody who wants safety and freedom in their neighborhoods a Nazi or something, maybe he's really talking about himself. And after you hear this video, you'll understand why.
We will throw the full force of the law at people. And whether you're in this country committing crimes on the streets or committing crimes from further afield online, we will come after you.
Talk to me about that, because we have seen some high-profile figures whipping up the hatred. You talked about it in there with the officers, in fact, about this being added to by online commentary. I mean, I'm even thinking of the likes of Elon Musk getting in.
Right. So you can hear like the lapdog press, which of course in the UK, the BBC is subsidized by the government, right? So they're heavily entwined, and you really can't say anything that goes against the official government narrative. And that's pretty well known by anyone who's capable of critical thinking who's still left in the United Kingdom. It's a really controlled thought type environment. It really is Orwellian. I mean, they have cameras now that they're trying to install everywhere to track everyone. They're basically modeling themselves after communist China, and Canada's also doing the same thing. And Gavin Newsom's trying to do that in California as well, say many experts. Now, let's go ahead and let this guy finish what he's got to say.
Involved. What are you considering when it comes to dealing with people who are whipping up this kind of behavior from behind a keyboard, maybe in a different country?
Being a keyboard warrior does not make you safe from the law. You can be guilty of offences of incitement, of stirring up racial hatred. There are numerous terrorist offences regarding the sort of publishing of material. All of those offences are in play if people are provoking hatred and violence on the streets, and we will come after those individuals just as we will physically confront on the streets the thugs and the obs who are causing the problems for communities.
So basically, we're just going to kick it off really quick
to another edition of Ask Michael Eline. This is where I teach people the law in an unorthodox manner by using examples that we see in the news, case law briefs, but it's all about exposing the Leviathan and its instrumentalities and taking back your rights. Know the law and mean to keep it well. Come here to learn from an expert to know your right. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel.
All right. So bottom line is we have two different systems now kind of going down. We've got the Irish one where they don't want to accept Muslims in their country anymore because they're finally admitting that the cultural differences are too great. The way they treat women, the way they treat children based upon their interpretations of the Islam of the countries they come from, it does not integrate with the Irish or the English. They're not integrating. When they come, they don't integrate. When they say, when in Rome, do as Romans do, the locals are complaining that the exact opposite is happening. They're just trying to get political power and shut out all the locals and destroy their culture, burn their churches, have their way with their local women and children. And then when they complain about it, the police are coming after the locals and accusing them of all forms of hate speech and things of this nature. And so in the United States, we have a First Amendment, which gives us the right to criticize our government and officials and people who are destroying our way of life and interfering with our culture. We have the right to speak out against that. Traditionally, that has been the American tradition. Not so in many European countries. And so, like, for example, in Germany, they have the crime of insult. If you flip somebody off while you're driving in Germany, they can take away your driver's license. And I think a driver's license there's like 15 grand or something. I mean, it's no joke. So there's a lot of differences culturally. And it's so amazing because we broke off from England and we basically took the Magna Carta and all those ideas that the king was supposed to guarantee to us. And with John Locke's help and Thomas Jefferson's help, we were able to put that into a Bill of Rights to memorialize that as a God-granted right from the universe that came down to us as unalienable. And the government was to be bound by the chains of the Constitution to allow us to speak and say our piece. And there are limited exceptions where, for example, if you're inciting a riot, like, if you're in a crowd and people are, pumped up and they've got weapons and hatchets or whatever, and they're ready to kill, and you're inciting other people to go in and do damage, that's a limited exception where the First Amendment wouldn't apply. It's called inciting a riot. And I think other states have their own. Sedition might be another one. Yelling fire in a crowded movie theater, obviously that would not be what's considered protected speech, right? That'd be a criminal act because people could get trampled and die. So there are very limited exceptions, but in the United Kingdom, they're not fettered by laws like we have. They have what's called a living constitution. So they can just change the rules as they wish. Very progressive, and we know that progressive always leads to totalitarianism when it comes to the left. And so what you're seeing right now in the United Kingdom is basically like something you've seen out of a George Orwell novel, where you have, if you say anything bad about the government or bad about these immigrants that have been forced upon the local populace, the government's coming after you instead of trying to change their policies and try to make it safer for the local citizens and let the local citizens voice their opinions. Very similar to what Gavin Newsom did in California with the Safety Act, when all the parents of the local school district said, no, 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 we don't think public school teachers should have the right to secretly transition our kids and keep it a secret and use different pronouns at school and keep that a secret. We don't like that. As parents, we deserve to know. And Gavin Newsom said, well, that's BS. And him and his attorney general tried to shut down those school districts. And when that didn't work, they got, since it's a single party state, he signed the Safety Act into law. So now parents don't have the right to know what's going on with their kids at school. So it's pretty scary. And it's real similar. You see the same kind of UK, Canadian thing. It's like California, Canada, and the UK all happening at the same time. It's really funky. So, I found some really great sources of information online. And one of the best sources that I've been able to find, I'll be honest with you, is Twitter. I mean, man alive. The mainstream press won't report on any of this stuff. It all gets buried. They try to hide it. They're trying to create this false narrative that if you want to be safe and you don't like it, that people are coming from cultures that are totally adverse to yours and that don't respect you in your own land, in your own home. Our press is trying to suppress that. And if you go to Twitter, you'll be able to find all this information. And of course, we heard that lady complaining about Elon Musk and the propaganda wing of the British government, the BBC, complaining about Musk and how, oh my gosh, he's saying things that are true that could hurt someone's feelings. Oh my gosh. But basically, here's what's going on. The Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Mark Rowley, has threatened to extradite and jail U.S. citizens over online posts related to the UK riots, sparking widespread criticism and disbelief. And the announcement has raised concerns about freedom of speech and jurisdiction of UK law over foreign nationals posting from abroad. The move has been met with strong opposition and with many questioning legality and implications of such actions on international relations and individual rights. And so there's just all these posts where the United Kingdom's threatening to deport Elon Musk and send him away, to a jail. And they'd love nothing more, right? The globalists would love nothing more than to get rid of this guy. I mean, before Elon Musk, they had a complete stranglehold on all of the information. So you couldn't even get this information. You couldn't find it on Google because they shadow ban stuff and they gray list and blacklist results. So you can't find it. They'll only put up stuff that's politically favorable to the people they support. We know that's going on thanks to Elon Musk. We know from the Twitter files that there was a revolving door employment scheme between the CIA, FBI, FDA, CDC, pharma, all going back and forth with big tech and all the people that were capable of and did suppress true information and block people's accounts for talking about true information. So Musk was able to expose that. And to this day, these radical globalists are really upset at him for that. Because, obviously controlling information is the number one way to stay in control. So now you have the UK police commissioner threatening to extradite and jail U.S. citizens. So we're just going to get into it really quick because I spent some time today because I haven't been feeling well. I had my birthday last night and I am just kind of wiped out, from going out. But so I was laying in bed and I decided I'm just going to get on my computer and start writing. So I wrote this really cool article. Can London police extradite Americans for anti-jihadi posts about the UK? Because that's basically what these people are doing. They're posting stuff on the internet, complaining about what they consider to be basically a bunch of terrorists that their government has flooded into their country from sub-Saharan Africa. And they're putting them and they're building immigration centers right in the middle of their cities. Like we're traditional English families. And you know how the English are. They got the stiff upper lip. They're usually pretty kind people. And they're pretty highly intelligent, if you'd ask me, highly literate. But unfortunately, they've been suppressed by their government. That they haven't had a lot of freedom. They have no right of self-defense, keep and bear arms. And they've been brainwashed into thinking that that's a bad thing to be able to defend yourself. from an attacker, while they flood their own country with people that are potential attackers. So that's what the locals are complaining about. So I wrote this article, and basically, look, I couldn't find anything out there, guys, about can an American, a Westerner, be deported over to the UK for making a statement about, Muslim terrorists or jihadism, or, the guests that they don't want in their country, the illegals or the amnesty, asylum seekers, whatever you want to call them, whatever semantics you want to use. They're foreigners who do not, according to most locals, respect the culture of the British people, and they're bringing their own culture over and trying to, a lot of them want Sharia law. And I don't know if you guys know what that is, but they openly talk about it. And another issue that a lot of people are having a problem with is they want to express their domination of any society they go into by praying in the streets. And so they have the speakers, and they're all praying in the streets, so people can't drive their cars, they can't walk around. It's really intimidating, and they're just wondering, why can't you just pray in your mosques? Because there's more mosques now in the UK than there are churches. I think that I heard that on a video. So there's just a lot of cultural issues that make the locals really uneasy and upset. And it took a while for things to boil over, because they're so trusting of the king and the queen and the government and all that, tip, tip, cheerio. But finally, they're starting to realize, we're unsafe. You've literally flooded our country with people that wish to do us harm. And it doesn't matter what their religion is so much as it's their culture. And they're not being put through a citizenship course like in the United States. Legal immigrants, they would come here, they would be sponsored, they would learn about our culture, they would even take a test so they could so we would know they understand the significance of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, our constitutional republic. And that's just all being done away with. It's almost like they want to create an idiocracy of people who have no clue. It's much easier to subjugate somebody like that. Give me a bunch of ones in the sidebar if you understand what I'm talking about. So basically, the answer is, right now, the answer is no. Right now, the answer is, unless the U.S. abolishes or alters the First Amendment, creating a dual criminality, that would be the only way. And so let me just explain to you what that is. So a dual criminality would be a law where something is illegal in the United States and the UK, and it's called dueling criminality, where they're basically the same. And it still has to pass judicial scrutiny on both sides of the pond. But one way to, let me show you. Now, this isn't necessarily one involving an American, but it's only 3 minutes long, and it's somebody who I've been following for years, but this is exactly what I'm talking about, a dual criminality. So let's watch the story of Julian Assange.
A British court has opened the door for WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange to be extradited to the United States. Judges in London have overturned a previous ruling that blocked Assange's extradition on mental health grounds, following an appeal by Washington. The U.S. wants to put the WikiLeaks founder on trial for publishing classified military documents relating to the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. Assange is expected to appeal. For more on this verdict that allows for the extradition of Julian Assange, we are joined by Professor Nils Meltzer, Special Rapporteur on Torture at the UNHCR. He also wrote a book on the plight of Mr. Assange. Welcome, sir, to DW. What are your first thoughts?
Yeah, and we'll get into the torture thing in a little bit, too, about the UK, because the stiff upper lip image that they have behind closed doors, their police are just as bad as the worst police you could ever imagine in the United States.
Thoughts?
Well, it's disappointing, of course, especially to get such disastrous news on International Human Rights Day, because this judgment clearly goes against anything that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights stands for. Now, I'm not surprised that this happens, because I've investigated this case personally. I have visited Mr. Assange in prison in Belmarsh 2 years ago. And what I can see is that throughout the last decade, his human rights have been violated systematically at all stages of every legal proceedings he has been exposed to. So what we see here is now that the appeals court has allowed the US appeal, which basically means that they have opened the door to his extradition if the UK government agrees to extradite him to the United States.
What recourse does Assange have at this point? What's next?
Well, he can still appeal to the UK Supreme Court, but what we have to see here is that the High Court is obviously a very high-level court in the UK, and also it has been presided by the Lord Chief Justice of England and Wales, which is the highest placed judge in the UK. So the UK Supreme Court can decline to hear the appeal.
So that is another one of the. So one of the other problems is if you have an activist judge and they're on the side of trying to make everything hate speech that they disagree with, which that's coming from a lot of the academic institutions in the United States, mirroring what's going on in Canada and quite frankly in communist China. That's basically it's a totalitarian scheme to declare anything that's free as hateful or violent. Because once you declare it violent, that opens the door to taking away firearms from people, as well as restricting their right of travel and freedom. That's been the game book that is being used with this new social construct that's being rolled out by the World Economic Forum primarily and all of their surrogates. Let's go ahead and keep watching this.
It's not a given that it will hear that appeal.
So clearly the case is not over, but what precedent does this verdict set viewed in isolation?
Well, I think it's extremely dangerous because what essentially is being done is that the only issue that has been discussed at the Spiel stage is whether the U.S. guarantees regarding its detention conditions, which were considered to be oppressive by the first instance judge, whether they can be rendered humane by diplomatic assurances.
Right.
What was not discussed, which is really the elephant in the room in this case, is press freedom. Why is Julian?
So one issue is going to be, like, for example, there are some countries that don't have a death penalty and the U.S. does. So even if there's dual criminality and all these other elements are met, the judge, as a matter of law, may just decide, look, I can't extradite Assange to the U.S., for example, because, you know, this charge that he's being hit with could potentially be capital and therefore the death penalty might be involved. And so the U.S. would have to offer adequate assurances to the United Kingdom diplomatically and legally that they would never put him to death, that it would just be like a life sentence or whatever, you know, it is they're trying to do. Maybe they're just going to Epstein him, you know. But the bottom line is the same procedure would be followed from the U.S. point of view. And since the U.S. has really, really strong speech rights protections, it's going to be much more difficult. I want to go ahead and let this guy finish. There's just a few more minutes. But because I'm trying to show you, yes, it is possible to do these extraditions based upon these politically motivated charges, which is exactly what it will be. If you're complaining about foreigners in your country raping and killing your women, and then you're getting thrown in jail for it, that's political. But the laws are being written in a way to keep you from engaging in that political speech. Go ahead and listen to this guy.
Assange in prison in the first place, given that all he has done is what investigative journalists do all around the world every day, publishing true information about government misconduct.
So the fight goes on for Mr. Assange's supporters. I can certainly hear it in your voice.
Yeah.
But how much fight does Mr. Assange himself have left?
Well, I cannot speak for him. I'm not his lawyer.
But right, like another Chile de Castro personality type. I mean, this guy is really weathered a storm for what he believes in. And I know that there's a lot of people who don't like him, but him and Snowden basically exposed that our government's been illegally spying on us and been engaging in unconstitutional activity. And if we turn a blind eye to that, we have to be insane. Now, if they did break some kind of a law, well, you know, the president and the people in charge have the power to grant some kind of pardon or leniency. I know Obama did that with the dude who had the sex change, who also spilled secrets. I don't know why they couldn't do it for people like this as well. The problem is that Snowden, as well as this other guy, Assange, spilled a lot of bad stuff about the Obamas. And a lot of people believe that Obama runs our administrative state as sort of a fifth column of our government. So that could be one of the reasons. But let's go ahead and hear this guy out, and then we'll move on to the next thing.
obviously not, but I knowing him a little bit, I would suspect that he is very resilient. He certainly believes in his cause. But one other thing that his legal team can do and should do is to cross appeal against that first instance judgment in January, to bring all those issues of press freedom and human rights violations and due process to the fore in the next instance court.
That is Professor Niels Meltzer. Many, many thanks for your time and perspective, sir.
That was awesome.
Thank you very much.
You really got to hand it to activists like this who are willing to be placed on government watch lists because they're trying to fight to force the government to be bound by the chains of the Constitution. They're trying to force natural law back on the government. And, you just can't help but just be amazed at some of these guys. I mean, they'll sacrifice their lives for this stuff. Now, let me see. We're going to get into this article really quick. Hopefully you guys can see everything. By the way, everybody, hey, Roger Lane, good seeing you, man. Oh, yeah, laughing. That's right. It was Chelsea Manning. That was that guy. I guess he was stealing stuff like secrets from the Pentagon and sharing it with our enemies or something. And yeah, I don't really know what that one was all about. That was an Obama deal where he made sure the guy got his sex change and they got him out. And I don't know why they couldn't do that with Assange, to be honest. I mean, what's done is done, and shined a lot of light on the rat's nest and the cockroaches. I mean, maybe they can work something out. But anyways, this show is about whether or not the UK police can extradite me, you, or even Elon Musk over to the UK for saying bad stuff about the immigrants that are causing so much mayhem and havoc throughout the United Kingdom, which has now caused the native population to rise up against them and start attacking the immigration centers where a lot of the crime is coming from. And that's the untold story that CNN and PMSNBC won't tell you. You won't hear that side. You'll just hear that they're all just a bunch of nationalists, racist, bigots, and homophobes. And that's the narrative. And that just gets spread across the entire billionaire-owned news media, from Washington Post Bezos to Facebook or Zuckbook, all political activists controlling information. So it's really hard to get the real information unless you find somebody, quite frankly, like me. So I have boots on the ground over in Ireland and in England right now, as well as Scotland. And so I know exactly what's going on over there from the locals' perspective. I used to live in Scotland, and I really, I loved it over there. Even though it was gloomy as heck, the people are just so resilient and wonderful. And I really do feel for them that their government has forced a foreign population on them and has made them unsafe as a result. And that when the native population speaks out against it, they're being targeted by their government for hate speech. And it's really scary. And this could happen in the United States under like a Harris administration, potentially, because we know that a lot of the laws that she has backed support the concept of restricting speech and declaring certain type of speech violent in order to restrict it and throw you in jail potentially, or take away your firearms for it. So we're on a really slippery slope, guys. So it's just a scary time in our history that the Constitution somehow is being turned on its head, like out of an Orwell novel or something. So, but the answer is no. The United Kingdom is not going to be able to do anything like that unless we alter or abolish the First Amendment and create a dual criminality. In other words, we'd have to create laws on both sides of the pond that match to dual criminality. Like, for example, espionage. That's dual criminality. That would be a basis to extradite Julian Assange. That's just an idea, right? Now, what's going on is the question of whether London's metropolitan police officers and prosecutors can extradite Americans for expressing their views online about jihadis and supporters of Sharia law in the UK brings up several important legal and ethical considerations. And this is what I wanted to touch on. Because, this guy, this same cop, he ripped some guy's microphone out of his hand who was asking him a question about the two-tier justice system. I'll try to find that. But the locals are complaining to the police, hey, you guys have this two-tier justice system because you're terrified of these Muslims running around with machetes. So what you're doing is, because the locals are so pacified by
hundreds of years of brainwashing by the crown that they basically take a lot longer to get angry, right? That's the real problem. It takes them a lot longer to get angry. And finally, they've reached a boiling point, and they're making posts about, like 80-year-old men are posting about it online, because that was just normal when they grew up, that you could have a little bit more free. It was considered normal to have that kind of speech, even in England, where they didn't have to have a free speech law, right? Because free speech is a universal, God-granted, unalienable right, guys. That's why, because it's just normal. It takes a bunch of academics and thousands of years of craziness, right? Of government-funded craziness to come up with ideas like this. People with too much time on their hands trying to restrict speech. It's just shutting down the discourse. And so that's one of the things that we're going to learn about with the Irish tonight, which is really respectable how they're fighting back. Now, Steve Ladner says, who thinks self-proclaimed heroes in the States will arrest someone to be extradited to the UK? Oh, gosh, I don't know. I don't know. Alan Hubbs, good seeing you, man. Laughing, good seeing you too. And now Laughing says Assange was heavily spied upon while in the embassy, and the UA spied on his lawyers during. Oh, of course, they did the same thing with Eddie Gallagher. The DOD, I guess, was illegally. They planted a virus or hacked into his lawyer's computers. He was the Navy SEAL who was accused of all those war crimes. And, the Department of the Navy turned their back on him. Luckily, he had enough Marines on that jury to get him acquitted. Anyways, we'll get into that another time. Alan Hubbs, yes, there's lots of crime, also a huge drain on resources. That's a big problem, too. They're getting everything for free. So you're already attracting people who are coming there with the mindset that they're not going to be industrious or contribute to society. And that is a big problem, because most countries won't allow anyone into their country to live or work unless they can show they can offer something of value to bring to the country. But see, in the US in particular, we have the census. So there's one political party that's relying on just millions of illegals to change our electoral college and to redistrict all the red states blue. And that's what's going on. So they don't really care if they're going to provide anything, because it's a power grab. Because if they can get enough electors, they'll be able to turn everything into their single party country, like they were able to do with California, and they were able to use illegals to do that as well. That's one of the primary ways California has picked up many congressmen and whatnot, is because of the census count, and that a lot of that has to do with the illegal immigration. And that's another reason why they're a sanctuary state, because they want to attract as many bodies as they can, because it increases political power. So you guys, hopefully there's enough critical thinkers in my audience to understand what's really going on. It's just a power grab. They don't care about these people. If anything, they're going to use the prison industrial complex to be filled up with a lot of these people, so they can create jobs for the administrative prison industrial complex, because it's all about creating bureaucracies and control centers to control the populace. We're now the slaves, and the administrative state is now the master. So let's get into what's going on. When you're considering whether or not they can extradite us, you've got to look at the allegations of the criminal activities, and then there's going to be a maze of international law. All right. Now, many in the UK, especially South London, are fearful of insulting Muslims the government invited to live among the native Brits. The government is afraid of another terrorist attack and has little respect for the locals in the heavily Islamic areas. So the UK has clamped down on the natives, prompting riots, complaints about a two-tier justice system. Locals say young Muslims have organized into rape gangs, and Homeland Security is afraid to be called racist for clamping down. Some locals say police are supporting a Taliban government out of fear of a suicide bombing. And this is the stuff that I'm hearing from people that live there. This is kind of crazy that you're hearing this stuff, and they're saying it about their government. And they're saying that when they complain, that when we complain in the United States, now the chief of police wants to have us arrested. And the image that the UK police are presenting as an oppression against the natives seems to be what the police director and his thought police want. So that's what we're calling them, the thought police, right? By the way, this is the head thought police person in charge of all the information. So let me see if I can blow her up. Well, maybe it's a they, them. I don't know. That's the biggest I can get her. Looks like a girl, so I'll just say it's a girl.
Hopefully I don't offend anybody. Jiminy Christmas, right? But anyways, that is the person in charge of censoring all of your information and deciding whether or not you've committed a crime online. In an Orwell novel, that's what you would call the thought police. Okay, just so you understand. Does everybody understand that? Give me a bunch of ones in the sidebar if you know what the thought police are and what a thought crime is. Let me know if you've read the book 1984. Now, Roger Lane, man, I really appreciate you showing up again. Oh, dude, you did it again. Thank you, brother. So Roger Lane is like hooking me up again, showing his appreciation for my show. He just gifted me 5 Michael E. Line injury attorney memberships, which I guess get distributed out to the audience. And I think that's really cool. I have a lot of people now that are able to view my my secret stuff in the back end. And by the way, I did see a couple people bought. Hold on. Again, I only have an ebook. I don't have this soft cover book, but I just want to show you the image on the book. And eventually, once I'm able to capitalize a little better, guys, because I'm doing this on the fly. I'm not making any money off of this. I am selling a digital version of my book called My Journey to Becoming a Practicing Lawyer with No Law Degree or Undergrad. And I have a digital version, and I'm eventually going to have a soft cover version. It's going to cost a lot more. And it's about my journey of becoming a lawyer without law school or an undergrad, like, becoming a lawyer first before doing that. So, and how you can do it too. And I talk about other states of the union. And so that's kind of that was, I think, my second sale of a book. And if you're in the audience today, I just got the thing. It was my birthday last night. And I'll admit I had a couple of beers and I just had a terrible hangover this morning. I just felt awful all day. Just been drinking as much water and Gatorade as I could. And I really wanted to share this with you guys because there's nobody that's really writing about this. I haven't seen anybody on the talking heads. Can Elon Musk be extradited? Like, nobody, like, where are the stories about this? This is kind of a really cool story. And so I feel like I kind of have a breaking story and I have a duty since I'm a quick guy. I want to get it out there to you. So this is like firsthand, really cool stuff. Yeah, I agree with you, Kathy Roberts. I don't care if someone is a they, them, or whatever. Your gender and all that stuff doesn't trump my constitutional rights. And that's the problem, is on the campus, a culture where they're trying to create safe spaces and they're trying to restrict who can be in places and tell one segment of the population they're oppressors and the other segment that they're oppressed, creating all this division and tension among people and trying to treat white males like they're the enemy and, even politicize that, like make it acceptable to treat a white man like he's less than someone else. Just totally tragic and a terrible thing. What a terrible way to allow your society to degenerate like that. Horrible, horrible, horrible stuff. And so, hey, thanks again. Yeah, thanks, Tom Shaw. So we're going to get into this really quick now. So the threat by the thought police chief Rowley, right? That's the guy. So we're just going to call him Thought Police Chief Rowley. Can you guys all type Thought Police? Give me TP in the sidebar for Thought Police Chief Rowley. So give me a TPCR. TPCR. All right. So what he's saying is he wants to control inflammatory speech. And, I saw some examples of some old ladies, tweeting about how they want, it looks like this guy's a Muslim that killed these 3 girls. And that's what sparked this off. This dude who's Rwandan, offspring of Rwandan immigrants, went and killed 3 local kids. Now keep this number 3 in mind, because this is going to be important when we talk about Ireland. 3 kids is what it apparently takes for the United Kingdom to be killed. Well, actually, there was 1,400 of them, but it took this to put it over the top. It took this extra 3 to break the camel's back. And so, but 14 other kinds of assaults, and I think there were some murders as well. It took that to spark off this local outrage. Now, anybody who's protesting against it is automatically being called a white supremacist by the government, and the locals are, quite frankly, pissed off. They'll have a Union Jack flag around them because that's their country, because they're native Brits, and they'll be accused of being racist for supporting the Union Jack. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, honestly, if you're a native, you should be ashamed of your government for allowing this to have gone this spiral this far out of control. If you've got people in your country that are putting you down and calling you racist because you support your own union colors, your own country, because you have love of your own country, you're in the wrong country, my friend. That's just not acceptable. So this Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Mark Rowley, warns that laws reach beyond city limits and national borders. And we'll, I got him here again. Let's play it again.
We will throw the full force of the law at people.
Law.
And whether you're in this country committing crimes on the streets or committing crimes from further afield online, we will come after you.
Talk to me about that, because we have seen some high-profile figures whipping up the hatred. You talked about it in there with the officers, in fact, about this being added to by online commentary. I mean, I'm even thinking of the likes of Elon Musk getting involved. What are you considering when it comes to dealing with people who are whipping up this kind of behaviour from behind a keyboard, maybe in a different country?
Being a keyboard warrior does not make you safe from the law. You can be guilty of offences of incitement, of stirring up racial hatred. There are numerous terrorist offences regarding the sort of publishing of material. All of those offences are in play if people are provoking hatred and violence on the streets, and we will come after those individuals just as we will physically confront on the streets the thugs and the obs who are causing the problems for communities.
Oi! So he emphatically stated, we will throw the full force of the law at the people, and whether you're in this country committing crimes on the streets or committing crimes from further afield online, we will come after you. So he's basically, that's not even a veiled threat. That's a direct threat to American citizens. And in particular, they're going after Elon Musk. The globalist cabal, the Luciferians, they hate Elon Musk. They hate that he exposed the public-private partnership, basically the Borg-like relationship between all the ABC agencies and Twitter and Facebook and all the big-time supporters of their party. And the mainstream press and people like Bezos, they have not recovered because they basically had control of the entire narrative. The narrative that you see on CNN and PMSNBC is the narrative that was everywhere. And then Fox was a watered down version. And then with the emergence of X and exposing the Twitter files and all the chicanery that went on, now you see Twitter is the #1 source of open ideas and information. And the globalists are going crazy. They want to get this guy worse than they want to get Trump. They really want to shut this guy down because they know the person who controls the messaging is the one who controls the masses, because most of the masses aren't critical thinkers like the people who watch my show. Most of the people who watch my show and have stayed loyal to me are critical thinkers. Many of them have an interest or have had classical education, or they've had real life common sense education by military service, perhaps having been in combat, or they've been in construction where they've had to build homes and, done things with their hands, built things where they've achieved things with hard work and labor. So there's something that does that just makes you tick as a man, that makes you a little different. Critical thinking is people like that in my sidebar, but the masses, they don't have that. So when Twitter came open, a lot of the masses now had access to real information. And so that really, really upsets, the lower IQ people now have access to all the same information that the intelligent people just took for granted as just being normal to know. So just think about that. Now, I don't know about BitChute, but I'm going to check that out. Now, let me just really quick. So I just want to get through this article really quick because it's really good. So hopefully you guys can see everything. And thanks again for joining me on a Saturday night, guys. I mean, obviously I'm not going out tonight. I'm wiped out from yesterday. So basically, Musk reacted to a video about an arrest for offensive online comments. So that's why they're getting kind of pissed at Musk, or it's a pretextual reason to be more pissed at him, right? And basically Musk said, is this Britain or the Soviet Union? Because the police are going like door to door and arresting old ladies and old men, like the old white people who are the native populace, for complaining about these foreigners that their government forced upon them, who are causing all kinds of trouble in their cities. And they're upset about it. And so they're complaining about it. And the government's reaction is to put these people in jail. And that's very similar to what you see the administrative state, like the campus crusaders, wanting to do to people in the United States with similar positions. So it's really interesting, right? It's the same messaging. It's coming from the same propaganda machine. These things aren't happening by mistake. It's not a mistake that all of a sudden all the kids are turning trans, right? It's not a mistake. It's messaging. So in response, some pundits and politicians in the UK called for an investigation and even Musk's arrest for publicly commenting on the controversy. And we saw one of those. Now, there's another in my article. It's on my law firm website. But I talk about Babar Ahmad and how he was the longest held Muslim in the UK. And eventually he was extradited to the United States. And because of the extradition treaty, I just wanted to show you the example, right? So there was an extradition treaty, and this was sort of a comedy in laws because it was a terrorist related issue. But eventually this guy was, extradited to the United States, and the FBI and whatever got him convicted of, terrorism and whatnot. Now, one of the issues that I'm hearing about is a lot of the Birmingham people are griping about Muslim Sharia law, no-go zones, and rape gangs. And so this is a problem. So if you talk about this kind of stuff online, the government will shut down your account, and you could be arrested for even talking about it. And so that's what's got people really worried. Like, they can't even talk about the dangers in their communities. And they're saying this is really going on. And so just so you guys know, Sharia law is basically a political, well, Islam, as you know, is a very political religion to begin with. But Sharia law is designed to replace the existing political system with a religious system, similar to what the Shias did in Iran under the Ayatollahs, but that's Shia. I think the people in the UK they're more of the Wahhabist Muslims, which they're like radical Muslims, but at least they were considered that way before they got a large populace in the UK, and then you couldn't say that anymore. It's really interesting when they get numbers, people get scared, right? And they know that people are scared. And so what's going on is we have a large portion of the Islamic population and a lot of immigrants, they call them boat people, who want to adopt this form of Sharia law, and they talk about it openly. And Sharia law, part of that praying in the streets thing, that's part of the Sharia law. It public displays of dominance to show the native population that they've been conquered. And that's part of the Sharia law messaging. So just so you guys understand that there's actually a messaging behind that. And so, yeah, thanks, Jeff. Good seeing you too. So I don't really know how many people, how many of the non-natives and immigrants and people who have moved there are into the Sharia law thing. But we do know that London has been a hotbed of Islamic terrorism since the 90s, and it's just gotten worse. And the locals are just really concerned. And I don't even think it's really a religious thing so much as it's a cultural thing. And I guess there's a real worry of a homegrown terrorist attack against the native Brits and, riots and all that. And it basically what's going on is this Rwandan guy, I guess he wasn't even a Muslim. And this is like the cover story the press is using. See if there wouldn't be riots if this Twitter person wouldn't have posted that he was a Muslim immigrant. But that's not true, because it's not that the locals aren't so much concerned about them being Muslims. They're concerned about this cultural thing where these young men are like, they think it's okay to just like have their way with the local girls, and the parents can't. And when the parents complain about it, the police try to silence the parents. So, I mean, think about that. It's like right out of a George Orwell novel. It's crazy. So the problem now is that probably is the straw that broke the camel's back, and it's been a tumultuous week. And the riots have escalated into looting, arson, violence, and threats by Muslims and natives. So the Muslim communities and the native communities are just fighting back and forth with each other. And even the non-Muslims that are just immigrants, they side with the Muslim side, because they're the immigrant side. And so that's what's going on, according to what I'm being told by friends of mine who live there. So I'm scared for everybody, both sides, to be honest. I mean, the those people, especially like the second generation families from like Rwanda or whatever, they're Brits now under British law, and they should be treated with the same, respect. But they should also, their family should try to adopt, British culture and not try to force Sharia law. And I think that's the disconnect I think that the British government has right now, that they're not getting through their thick skulls, because they're so brainwashed by this globalism and the money that they get from people like Klaus Schwab, that it may be too late to save the British people, at least the UK portion of Britain. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, the unrest traces back to July 29th, when 3 children were tragically murdered in a knife attack at a Taylor Swift themed party in Southport, London. And this is like, they're not reporting on this, like CNN and PMSNBC. They just gloss over this and want to focus on, it's just all these white supremacists are just trying to get the Muslims and they don't like them. That's the narrative. And it's just really totally disingenuous. So 10 other girls were injured. Okay. And then what happened is a 55-year-old woman from Chester posted on social media claiming that the suspect was an asylum seeker who came to the UK by boat last year and was on an MI6 list. And then she also posted, if this is true, then all hell is about to break loose. So she literally qualified it and said, I don't even know if this is true. Right. So like in the United States, that would not rise to anything. And I don't think anybody would riot over it, but the government is using this as an excuse to restrict free speech. It's a pretextual move by these far left Marxists in the UK government to try and restrict more speech and try and say that this post is what started the riot. They don't have any evidence that this post started the riot. They don't have any. They just made it up out of thin air. They're just saying that this is what did it, because they can do that because they're the government. The BBC is like, they own part of the media in the United Kingdom, right? They subsidize it. I mean, give me a break. Like NPR, government subsidized. I mean, it's totally far left, right? Give me a break. So, woman who first shared fake Southport suspect rumor that sparked riots arrested. Okay. So they're saying that she sparked the riots. Okay. So let's read what it says. It says here that there were racist riots across the country based on misinformation, claiming that a stabbing was based on someone who was a Muslim asylum seeker on the MI6 watch list. A 55-year-old woman from Chester has now been arrested because she did the social media post blah, 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 on this thing. So hold on, I'm going to share this with you. I want you to see this. So check this out, guys. So this is her. Woman who first shared fake Southport suspect rumor that sparked riots arrested. I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a cover story that Hillary Clinton used when the Benghazi embassy was raided by those terrorists over in Libya. Remember that? And they claimed that it was based on this YouTube post that was anti-Muslim. Remember that? And that was proven to be totally a lie, and it just got swept under the rug. Probably a lot of you guys don't remember that, but I remember things like that because I'm a lawyer. So I always try to look at the universe as all interconnected and try to understand, why are these things happening, and look at the underpinnings of what really happened and why it happened. And so anyways, she's been arrested, and the government's claiming that it's her post. It's her racist post that sparked these riots. So this dude killed 3 of their local girls and wounded 10 others. The government tried to cover it up as best as they could. She raised hell about it and said, I don't know if this is true, but he's probably a MI6 watch list, Muslim, whatever. And so now the government goes and says, she's the reason. It's her. She started this. It's all her fault. Let's just get her. That's right. What the hell was that? I don't know if you guys can hear that, but I'm trying to find out where that's coming from. All right, hold on, guys. I got to find where this is coming from. What the heck? Oh, it's this guy. Oh, it's this guy over here. Wait, we gotta watch this guy.
children and women using those trains is doing some relatives. They are disgusting, nasty factors, and we need to cut their throats and get rid of them all. I just want to say thank you all. I'm going to leave it there. And free! Free, free! Palestine! Free, free! Palestine! Free, free! Palestine! Thank you. God bless you all.
All right, so this dude is their version of he's Labor. So he's a Labor member of Parliament, I believe. And he is calling for the slashing of the throats of the native British who are unhappy that their kids and children are being targeted from these immigrant centers that have been forced upon the local communities. And they're upset about it. And so he's calling for their throats to be slashed. And he, you can see that they have all their globalist signs in the background, you know, end racism, blah, you know, everything is being like, you know, staged as a racist thing. But really, these people are just really angry that their kids are getting targeted. And unfortunately, it's the same people that look the same, right, from sub-Saharan Africa. So the locals are going to obviously assume that they're the people that are causing the problems because it's emanating from their immigration centers, right? That's the problem. But this guy is a member of Parliament, and he would be the equivalent of their Democrat Party. And so I want you to watch and listen again and watch his hand gesturing, because it's hard to catch this, but he's calling for the extermination of the local native British population. Hear this.
They hurt. We've got children and women using those trains. It's doing some relatives. They are disgusting, nasty factors, and we need to cut their throats and get rid of them all.
Did you hear that? We need to cut their throats.
Get rid of them all.
Hear it again.
And get rid of them all. Nasty factors, and we need to cut their throats and get rid of them. And we need to cut their throats. And we need to cut their throats. And we need to cut their throats. And we need to cut their throats and get rid of them all.
So this is obviously a descendant of immigrants who's in the UK, and now he's a member of Parliament, and he wants to cut the throats of the local native British population who are upset that other immigrants that are flooding into their country are causing a lot of damage to the local population. And obviously they're taxing the welfare system like crazy. And so this guy's solution is to cut their throats. So I just wanted you to see the tolerant left and how that's working out over in the UK. So I hope that, hey, BZ Watchdog, good seeing you, brother. No, I'm not dodging your call, dude. I was just wiped out today. So BZ called me earlier and I couldn't pick up because I was hungover for my birthday. So I slept all day and then just intermittently started typing this article that I created for you guys. But no, I'll reach out to BZ. We're working on a project, BZ and I, to set up a nonprofit where we can start advocating for public records requests for government accountability operations where we can raise funds. It's one thing to be able to try to make a couple bucks off YouTube, but it's an entirely another thing when you're trying to get these public records and they cost, hundreds of dollars per request. And, he's out driving an Uber and I'm trying to rebuild a law practice. So you understand it's not the easiest thing in the world. So, hey, good seeing you. Restore Your Rights Now. That's my Marine buddy. I won't say his name other than Restore Our Rights Now, but he is a legit Marine combat vet. And there's BZ Watchdog. And BZ Watchdog was also a Marine. Restore Our Rights Now. And so basically, that's what's going on, though. You've got like the local MP calling to cut the throats of people who are the natives who don't like it that their children are being attacked by these immigrant centers. And then this lady is in charge of controlling deciding what Facebook posts are considered to be, evil and criminal. And then this other woman, this one, let me get back up here. Jiminy Cricket. This woman is their pretext, sort of their Benghazi. I don't know if you guys remember this, but the Benghazi attack,
they used a cover story when our ambassador got killed. They said that it was this guy who posted this racist anti-Muslim post, and that got the Muslims upset over in Libya, and that's why they attacked the embassy. And that was their pretext, and that's exactly what this is. The police have no evidence that this is what caused these people to get upset, other than that 3 girls were killed and 10 other ones were almost killed by this guy who's in the same area where all these immigrant rape gangs are and stuff. So it's just, it's going to happen at some point, government, if you keep flooding your country with people and you don't do anything to try and get the other people to adjust to the culture they're moving to, right? If you don't force people to assimilate, instead, if you allow them to just build their own Sharia law system, naturally, that's probably going to be one of the outcomes. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree with that. Now, so this woman, basically, we just saw, okay, let's take a look. Let's look at some of the links in this bad chicken. See if I can find anything that looks interesting. That's nothing. All right, let's take a look. So she lives in a $1.5 million farmhouse. And here's what she says. I'm mortified being accused of this. I did not make it up. I just got it. I got it from someone else. I first received it from someone in Southport. Right? So she's just like, my post had nothing to do with the violence we've seen across the country. Of course it didn't have anything. Do you see how ridiculous this is? I mean, do you guys see how crazy this is? The UK administrative state just pulled something completely out of their butthole, and they're trying to blame it on this white lady because they want to increase this narrative that white people are evil, right? And they're racist, and they're the reason for all the problems in the world. And they're pushing that narrative. It's unbelievable. It's like everywhere right now. And so that's the narrative that they're pushing. And she does acknowledge that it may have been from like a Russian news website. Yeah, it could have been. Yeah, but who cares? How do you know that that's what sparked the riots? Why couldn't it have been from the fact that the people are getting sick of their kids getting killed and stabbed and being violated? Maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. What do you guys in the sidebar think? What do you think, Avilia? What do you think, Jeff? What do you think, Roger Lane? Do you think that it could just be that people get pissed off when their children get attacked by foreigners who you're trying to give a hand to and help out, and instead they return the favor by doing violence against you and your family? I mean, do you think that that's cool? Because that's what they're upset about. I mean, this particular attack, yeah, maybe he was a native, but he was still, he looked like all those dudes in the immigrant centers, and those people were already pissed off and inflamed, so they're going to get angry. And I understand that you can't just automatically accuse them of being unreasonable when it already happened 1,400 other times from people living in that area from that immigration center. So just think about that. That's the problem. At least that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing this happening in Scotland, England, Wales, and even in Ireland. But now Ireland's going to have a little bit different of a twist. We're going to get into that in a minute. But the bottom line is this Alison Ross and all these people are trying to say that it was this racist post, and that's what sparked the riots, which we all know is complete poppycock, completely fabricated, and it's just wrong. So hold on one second here. I want to play something for you about what's going on in Scotland, and just hear what's going on in Ireland. I'm sorry, not in Scotland, in Ireland.
Ireland looks like. Refugees are welcome here. In a way and at a pace that some are objecting to. It's literal. Last year, just over 13,000 asylum seekers arrived in the country, mainly through its airports. That's on top of over 100,000 Ukrainian refugees.
You should feel the same way if you call yourself Irish, but you don't, because you have no pride in your nation.
Their mantra, less Céad Míle Fáilte, more Ireland is full.
I feel very threatened. I'm afraid to go out on my own. My sons won't let me go out on my own.
Into countrywide unrest in recent months, after a sharp rise in the number of foreigners arriving onto its shores. Hardening anti-immigration views have transfused Irish politics with a fervour not seen since the Troubles.
How long are you going to stay out here for?
As long as it takes.
With its recent policy, the home of 100,000 welcomes has shown its readiness to say double 100,000 goodbyes to its migrant population in response to the outcry of Irish people. Ireland has recently implemented a solution to the immigration crisis the country has faced since 2022. According to Prime Minister Simon Harris, the solution is one of the many to come in the future. The policy, which was announced earlier this month, comes on the heels of one of the deadliest riots in Irish history, which left infractors in charge and the government in no doubt about the anti-immigration sentiments taking a foothold in the country.
These were the scenes in Dublin last weekend when scores of asylum seekers were forced to sleep outside the International Protection Office in tents. As we attempted to conduct an interview, we were met by an angry protester whose sentiment was that the Irish state is treating asylum seekers as a greater priority while 14,000 Irish people remain homeless.
You don't care about the Irish people. You're here jumping on the bandwagon. No, we need homes for the Irish 14,000.
So one of my buddies who lives over in Ireland says that she's the cat lady of Ireland. So this woman right here, just so you guys know. I just think it's kind of funny because I guess they have their own cat ladies and Karens in Ireland as well. Let's keep watching.
That was an Irish homeless family.
No toilets, no showers. They haven't showered for a week. They have no idea what to do. It was raining on them, raining on the tents, and it was very cold.
Ireland has taken in a lot of Ukrainian refugees, but a relatively small proportion of asylum seekers per capita from elsewhere compared to other countries in Europe.
And when the Irish emigrated, they worked for everything they ever earned. They got nothing for free. These people coming here getting everything for free.
In 90 days, we were told those 985 will be turned out to find their own accommodation. If they don't find it, the government will find it for them. Okay? There's thousands of homeless people already here that don't have homes. I live in the middle of a field in a mobile home because there's no home for me. The facilities we have right now at the minute don't facilitate anybody that's already living here.
So this is a similar complaint that I'm hearing from a lot of people like in San Diego and a lot of my veteran buddies, that these illegal aliens that are coming up here, like they're already getting a free phone, they're getting free hotel, free food, SNAP benefits. They're even getting registered to vote. A lot of people don't understand that. These administrative agencies are actually registering these people to vote. And people say that's not true, but there is evidence that it is true. So you won't hear about that on PMSNBC either. But anyways, you can see already that the Irish have a totally different tone than the English, don't you? They're like, we're Irish. We worked hard for what we have. We're not going to listen to you limey government scumbags, because they've been under the jackboot of the king and the government and the black and tans. You know, they've suffered, and what they have, they worked hard for. If there was any group of people on the planet that you'll ever meet that believed in a merit-based society and that you appointed leaders based on their merit, it would be the Irish. And you see that that's happening. They still have that strong part of their culture, and they're fighting back. And that's the difference. The English probably waited too long to fight back, and they're being, and the English are too terrified of being called racist or bigot. So they'd rather give up their freedom and just get shot in the head than be called names. And so because words have so much power in England that it's actually a crime to even say certain words, right? And so that's the power of government, that they can take a natural universal right like speech and turn it on its head and allow people to characterize you as something that you're not, and nothing happens to them, right? Right. It's okay for the government to call you a racist, bigot, or whatever, which is a slanderous term, and it's false, right? It's totally okay for the news media to do that, but it's not okay for you to say, hey, we need to get a legal form of immigration, and we have to have lawful immigration in our community, and we need to start, making sure that our local communities are safe. The government's job is primarily, that should be just to enforce a level playing field so we can all be out there and do what we need to do. But it's not doing that. And a lot of the locals in the UK are saying it's a two-tier justice system. But let's hear more about what the Irish are doing that's different than the English. Number one, they're bringing in Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians aren't really a big problem as far as, assaults, batteries, and whatnot, compared to the sub-Saharans that come up there. And so it's probably more of a cultural thing, but let's just keep going.
Migrant rights are under attack.
On the same day in Dublin, a pro-migrant demonstration marches along O'Connell Street, past the flashpoints of the Dublin riots last year. It's a long way to Tipperary and the town of Roscrea. This is Racket Hall, the town's last hotel. It was recently closed to the public in order to accommodate up to 160 asylum seekers. It included women and children who had to run the gauntlet of angry protesters. It got very ugly.
Before the new anti-immigration policy, Ireland saw a significant increase in its population, mainly because of asylum seekers from Ukraine and other migrants from Rwanda, Algeria, and some other countries. Since then, the country's resources have been stretched thin trying to provide for migrants. Most hotels in villages were converted to housing units, and tents were set up in the middle of fields to house immigrants. The situation continued to the gradual but silent displeasure of the Irish.
So, and again, the secret hand that you guys don't see are these non-governmental organizations that are getting billions of tax funds to develop programs of mass immigration and mass resettlement. So the government knows it's destroying the local populations and the cultural identities of these countries. And they frankly just don't care because they're getting paid off by all these globalist organizations. So, you know, you have a non-governmental organization, they get tax funds, and then they donate money some direct or indirect way back to you as the politician, right? Did you guys hear the story about the 2 Chinese nationals that got busted with like 300 or 400 pounds of gold bars in their car? You know, have you heard about the recent arrests? Politicians, I guess in Arizona, one of Menendez maybe was his name, got busted with gold, and you know they're paying off all these politicians with gold and silver bars, so you know you can't see what's going on, but they don't care. They're selling out their own people. You know by the fruits who they are. You know by their fruits who they are. They're allowing destruction on their own communities, and so that's the secret unseen hand behind all of this. Are these politicians who are getting money directly or indirectly from all of this stuff going on right here that you see.
Until the infamous riot.
In the last 5 years, there have been over 20 arson attacks on properties in Ireland associated with asylum seekers. Suspect, a naturalised Irish citizen originally from Algeria. Anti-migrant campaigners called people out into the street. And that evening, the worst rioting Dublin had seen in years. We caught up with him at a demonstration in Dublin last week. Do you regret some of your tweets on that evening at all?
I don't regret any of my tweets because I called for a peaceful protest on the night. And when I arrived there and I seen that it was getting out of hand, I deleted my tweet because I didn't want my people that come to the peaceful protesters in any way to be in any danger in the city centre. That's the reality of it.
Watch the dressing, guys. Public order, watch the dressing. Move back! Move back! Move back!
I mean, you guys kind of get the idea, right?
Well, public order unit responded, and the public order unit that I saw it in noon. And so it was operational decisions then in terms of deployment, assessing the situation, and then making sure that our deployment was proportionate. But we did call upon additional public order units then to support the initial unit. We had almost 200 Gardaí deployed, both public.
You know, I got to tell you, the Irish police guy here, he definitely is not doesn't come off like a doofus like this guy. I mean, this dude comes off like a complete, just like fascist, like lowest form of life on the planet. And then this other guy, the Irish guy, you can tell that it's less about emotion with him. You can tell he's a patriot, and you can tell that he cares about the local people too. He's not just 100% about the government. I've heard him in other speeches, so I can tell you that. I mean, obviously, I know none of you guys in my show like police, but not all police are the same in all countries. Let's just put it that way.
Order and normal uniformed personnel, and that was sufficient then to deal with the disorder that we faced.
Were they not there too late?
What we saw was pretty quickly the scenes of destruction.
The riot, which happened in November of last year, was a result of the stabbing of 3 young girls by a man alleged to be of Algerian origin. In other words, an immigrant. The senseless killing led to days of serious protests, with the Irish people carrying placards while chanting, "Get them out." It doesn't get any more straightforward than that, does it?
But the Irish and the long-term homeless here from all over the world are living and sleeping in the streets. The council come and take their tents and burn their goods or dump them. And these people are...
The lass is right. The wee lass is right. You know, when I was in Scotland, I think that is when they had just passed NAFTA, or, you know, there was like some kind of an agreement, like a free trade agreement that impacted trade relations with the United Kingdom. And where I lived in Motherwell, they had just shut down the Craig, which was, I guess, some kind of a mine, or like, I can't even remember what it was, but it was like a drilling, or I don't know. It was the main source of money for the locals. And, man, everybody was just on welfare, hanging out at pubs, watching Baywatch on cable TV, and all the pubs were filled with smoke. And you could just tell that the people were basically just trying to be happy as they could. But they'd rather be out, you know, making it happen, because they are naturally, the Scots are an industrious people by nature. And they're just really driven individuals. The Scottish culture is an amazing culture, guys. Wow. And in fact, a lot of our founders and a lot of the founding document, a lot of the inspiration for our Bill of Rights and our Constitution and our way of life, our constitutional republic, came from Scottish philosophers, you know, at big time, a lot of Scottish influence. So, yeah, so but anyways, we're talking about the Irish now. And of course, the Irish are part of that Gaelic tongue, a little bit different, but still they're Celts, right? And so it makes sense that they would have that similar sort of, and they've also been suppressed by the king for a lot longer, right? The Scots, the Black Campbells sold out the Scots, so their own tribe, the Scots could never be conquered by the British. They were sold out by their own tribe, the Black Campbells, and that's how the Scots were eventually conquered. And the Irish, I think, were conquered by sword. And I think it was it Prince William, the Earl of Orange, that helped in that conquest. But anyways, there were a bunch of different ones. But either way, they've been under the jackboot of a king, of a foreigner, and they don't like a foreign king. And it's natural they wouldn't like a bunch of foreigners that don't want to adopt to their culture. I mean, wouldn't you expect that if someone came into your home and it's your policy that you take your shoes off at the door when you come inside? Well, yeah, then you'd expect all your guests to do that. You'd expect, you know, people in an immigration center not to attack your children and try to, you know, put them in a rape gang or something, right? I mean, that's just normal. You just think you would take that for granted. You wouldn't think that your government would call you a racist for complaining about it, right? Think about that. And I think that the Irish caught on to the whole BS thing where they try to call you a racist just because you're trying to keep your family safe. Let's listen.
On a housing list 20 and 30 years.
Some people have described marches like this as far right. Are you far right?
No, I am a concerned father. I have 3 children. I have 2 daughters and I have a son, 11, 9 and 7. That's why I'm here. Listen, the mainstream media don't report on what goes on really in these areas. There's kids being abducted, there's kids being assaulted, there's kids being raped, there's women being raped, and the mainstream media will not report on it.
The Irish people no longer worried about being called racist and decided it was time for immigrants to go after years of enduring housing scarcity, increased cost of living, reduced access to healthcare, amongst other ills, and finally, insecurity.
Wild, right, guys? I mean, honestly, guys, and I don't want to toot my own horn, but give me a bunch of ones for finding all this great material and sharing it with you, because this is like, Pulitzer Prize winning material that I'm putting together here. And I'm, honestly, it is. This is the kind of stuff that we need to know about as families and as parents, as concerned citizens. We're just having the wool pulled over our eyes, and anything we say or do that goes against the narrative, they just try to paint us as a bad person and do the ad hominem thing. So give me a bunch of ones for myself, and let's keep watching this.
New asylum seekers in Ireland are being treated has enraged opposition members in the Irish Parliament.
Between dereliction, empty properties, overpricing, not building enough social housing, not having enough affordable housing for young people who are working.
Yeah. So what these globalists like this, like they would call her a cat lady, right, are trying to say is, we need to be able to allow these immigrants to move into people's summer properties, or, vacant homes that are like your private property, your rental property, whatever that you own. They want to be able to allow squatters to come and just take over your land. And she's one of these people. You can kind of tell she fits in with the Code Pink ladies. You could picture her with like the cat ears with the pink little beanie. So this is their version of that lady. Let's keep listening.
And who want to buy their own property. They've made an absolute bags of it, and they're compounding that by creating a culture war between refugees and homeless Irish people. I don't accept that.
Some have, however, argued that the destructive riots were caused by far-right ideologists who took over the peaceful protests being held. In recent times, Ireland has seen the creation of new political parties with anti-immigration policies as part of their campaign promises, and the government of the day has accused them of inciting the people.
I just want to talk a little bit about the latest rioting in Dublin. Another sort of centre for asylum seekers has been attacked. I think it was attacked 4 times in the past week. Is that right?
Yeah, in a suburb of Dublin called Coolock. Since the beginning of the year, there's been some form of unrest there. It began as sort of overtly political, peaceful protests. There was various encampments because the plans were that this large factory site was going to be earmarked for accommodation for asylum seekers. Peaceful protests were ignored, and they started to escalate. And in the last week, just gone, 4 arson attempts. Again, it seems to me unbelievable that the Gardaí couldn't manage, the Irish police couldn't manage to secure the area.
Yeah, so they call them the Gardaí, right? It's a little bit different. I think it's like a Gaelic word or something.
The fact that there was 4 arson attempts, and the place is pretty much the unrest in Coolock and similar things that have happened, quite violent stuff that's been happening, for example, in Tala, pipe bombs, arson attempts, further down the road in Wicklow and Newtown Mount Kennedy. They are deeply political because they're speaking to a big problem in Ireland, not just of numbers of asylum seekers. There's been 10,600 in the first half of this year. That's going to, more than double probably, at a time when there's a 250,000 housing deficit in a country that has 5.1 million people.
Yeah, 5.1 million people. And you see Desert Fernway, obviously that's got to be some kind of a Gaelic name. 1 in 5 residents in Ireland is foreign born, and they wonder why everyone is pissed. 1 in 5 residents in Ireland is foreign born, and they wonder why everyone is pissed, man. Fuck's sakes. Hopefully I did a good, kind of a decent Irish accent. Give me a bunch of ones if I did an okay Irish accent. I can't do a great Irish accent, but I could do a good Scottish one, you know, man, because I lived in Motherwell, mate. It was great, man. How are you, Jimmy?
Tinderbox kind of statistics. The censorship around the issue is visceral, and it has driven people who have genuine concerns that you might agree with or disagree with about, you know, GP places, housing, all the rest of it. And I would always tend to say it's the government's fault rather than immigrants' faults. But no discussion has been had with those people, and there's only so many times you can tell someone to put up and shut up before it starts to take on a different kind of tone, and it's a really big problem.
Whether or not the protests were politically engineered, there is no denying the fact that most citizens would not miss the immigrants if they were to be kicked out because of the hardship occasioned by their presence. Most have taken to protesting in front of sites earmarked for refugees, like we have in Coolock. Some have even gone as far as burning down houses intended for asylum seekers, to kick them out on the streets, and hopefully, eventually, the border. Some of the protesters have been arrested, but the rest remain undeterred.
Irish Prime Minister Simon Harris and the leader of the opposition, Mary Lou McDonald, Sinn Féin had to go into crisis talks, and Sinn Féin has now come out and said there needs to be a new policy on immigration.
So check it out. So I don't know if any of you guys know Sinn Féin. So they were the IRA. The IRA, that was them. They were the leaders of the IRA, and I think IRA Provisional. I think that's what they were called. I heard these stories at some of the pubs. You know, one of them I went to was called the Hibernian. It was in Scotland, but it was an Irish pub, and you had to give like a, what do they call it? Like £1 or something at the door. A quid. You had to give a quid at the door, and that was to buy a bullet for the IRA. And you went in there, and there were guys shooting snooker, and one of the guys had all of his fingers missing off one of his hands, and he was, you know, playing snooker, just like, you know, what was left, the stump on his thing. And my friend who I was there with, who I went to a Celtics Rangers game with, watched the Celtic. I was on the Celtics side. He told me that guy was a bomb maker for the IRA, and he'd blown his fingers off. So that was really interesting. That was an interesting time. That's right when I got out of the Marines. I lived over there I think it was 91. Anyways, let's get back into this. This is really an interesting story. Hope you guys like it. I mean, hopefully you're enjoying yourselves. Honestly, I mean, there's really not much to do on a Saturday night anymore. Once you're my age or your age, it's kind of boring to go out and spend money. Right? Let's go.
Any of these sites should be put to public consultation before they're decided on. I have a feeling that's a load of, which is unfair on the asylum seekers.
So let's put it back here. So Sinn Féin, let's listen to what Sinn Féin wants.
Burning down houses intended for asylum seekers, to kick them out on the streets, and hopefully, eventually, the border. Some of the protesters have been arrested, but the rest remain undeterred.
Irish Prime Minister Simon Harris and the leader of the opposition, Mary Lou McDonald, Sinn Féin had to go into crisis talks, and Sinn Féin has now come out and said there needs to be a new policy on immigration, that any of these sites should be put to public consultation before they're decided on. I have a feeling that's a load of, which is unfair on the asylum seekers who are suddenly it's hard enough to be, London Irish.
Well, that's another problem is, a lot of the natives are really pissed off because are they really even asylum seekers? Because we know, like in California, in our southern border, Texas, we know that non-governmental agencies go down, nonprofits go down to countries like Nicaragua, and they're importing illegal aliens to come up here. They're inviting them. They're giving them maps. They're teaching them how to circumvent our immigration laws, what to say to the police in order to not get deported, and to go through that process where it takes 6 or 7 years before they even hear your case before an immigration law judge. In the meantime, you get free food, you stay in a hotel, and they're already trying to make it legal for them to vote in places like New York. So, it's getting out of control, guys. And if you guys don't start complaining like the Irish are, we're going to lose our country. It's going to be over. Keep on watching.
Going into a small town in Ireland, let alone being from a different part of the world, because there's still a big issue of whether or not you're from the area, and blow-ins and all the rest of it. It's unfair on them, and it's completely unfair on these communities, many of whom suddenly given over to asylum seeker accommodation. So the whole thing is unfair. And I think there's something really terrible about what's happening in Ireland.
We're crossing to Ireland now. The country's waking up to the reality of the immigration crisis. Anne and I were reporting on this at the weekend.
Yes, fascinating. The Republic's main opposition party, Sinn Féin, have outlined a stricter immigration policy after a poll found that Irish voters care more about immigration than any other issue.
That's because it's out of control. Where else could it be out of control? Taoiseach Simon, he's the...
Did you hear that? Well, guys, you'll never hear someone on CNN or PMS, NBC, or one of these Marxist, corporatized journalists mention any of this kind of stuff. This guy clearly, obviously, there are some Irish reporters that have some gonads.
Of the immigration crisis. Anne and I were reporting on this at the weekend.
Yes, fascinating. The Republic's main opposition party, Sinn Féin, have outlined a stricter immigration policy after a poll found that Irish voters care more about immigration than any other issue.
That's because it's out of control. Where else could it be out of control? Taoiseach Simon, he's the boss man, he's the Prime Minister. Simon Harris faces increasing pressure to crack down on what is going on. We're now joined by Irish political correspondent Ben Scallon. Ben, this story really has taken on a life of its own over the past couple of weeks, but this has been brewing for a long time, hasn't it?
Yeah, several years now, really since the outbreak of the Ukraine war, when our government made a very grandiose commitment to having a no-cap policy when it came to asylum seekers. They said we will take as many as come effectively, and specifically, they said that they were bracing to accept as many as 200,000 asylum seekers entering Ireland, which for those who don't know, the Republic of Ireland's population is just over 5 million. So 200,000 in a country with a population of that size is astonishing, as you can imagine.
After the riot in November and continued protests over the past months, the government has been looking into solutions to stem the negative impact of immigration, and finally came up with the anti-immigration policy.
But, journalists or whatever, they just can't help themselves. They call it anti-immigration. No, you know what? That's semantics. It's called protecting your population. It's not anti-immigration. They're trying to protect their population. And that's what bothers me about the press and these journalists and these academics is they just fall all over themselves to overreach and try and paint you as an evil or a bad or anti-something, when in fact you're pro-immigration, you're pro-legal immigration, you're pro-safe and sane immigration. And the messaging is just so wrong. To automatically accuse someone of being racist because they want to protect their local population is absurd. I'm all for legal immigration. I'm all for people being able to go where they need to go. But man alive, you also have to keep your family safe. Like, for example, bringing in 200,000 Ukrainians, yeah, they're white, whatever, I guess that makes you, less racist. I don't know. I don't get it. But the bottom line is they still come from a different culture. They come from an Eastern European culture that is foreign to Ireland. Ireland is a Catholic country and they're Orthodox, whatever, Ukrainian. It's totally different. So it's going to take a long time to assimilate, and they probably never will if too many come at once. And so that was the idea behind legal immigration, where the people can assimilate and become part of your culture. I certainly wouldn't want a bunch of communists or people from Roman civil law democracies coming into the United States, because they don't understand the concept of a constitutional republic. So they won't understand the idea of being bound by the chains of a constitution or natural law or any of that. They come from countries usually with single party systems where they basically are controlled, and they're used to that. They're used to being in a prison-like sort of a governmental system where you don't have the freedoms that I have right now to be saying these things to you. In the UK, you can't even say these things that I'm saying to you without risking being arrested for hurting someone's feelings. So think about that. Let's keep on going.
Under the policy, immigrants will be asked to pay for services the state provides, says Taoiseach Simon Harris. The days of immigrants freeloading and drinking the day away are over. Senior ministers are also looking into proposals to charge for other state-provided services in the coming months to bring Ireland in line with other EU countries like Germany. So many immigrants in Ireland have now had their welfare cut and will have to pay for state services. Not only that, but Sinn Féin, the opposition leader, has suggested that the medical cards that they presently enjoy should be issued after a means test. The development was welcomed by citizens, who deem it fair for immigrants to pay like they do if they are serious about being integrated into the country. Some have, however, called for stricter laws against immigrants, like a mass eviction. But
so the exact opposite of what's going on in California, right? I mean, Newsom wants to immediately get them on free health care, immediately get them on government assistance, immediately just get them free whatever they need at your expense. And, and then what he just lost like $20 billion for the homeless thing. We did that show about that the other night, and it's all of his friends with these nonprofits are all getting money to end homeless, right? We know how it works. We get it. And so you see the exact opposite happening in California, where rather than try and make it safe for the natives are fleeing, like families are fleeing from California in droves. They don't want to have anything to do with that whole woke school system that Newsom has created. And they're replacing them with all these, the foreigners, right? And so, and in this case, it's not even, I guess in Ireland, at least they're trying to legally like find a way to, get them there and get them processed. Here, they're just flooding them into the country. We have no idea who a lot of these people are. So it's totally a different deal. It's almost like our government they don't even care about us in the United States. At least in Ireland, you can tell this guy's trying to do something.
Prime Minister Simon Harris has made it clear that Ireland is a welcoming country and wants to help, be decent, and be humanitarian.
Yeah. Well, we all do, right? I mean, who doesn't? I mean, it's just dumb to think that any of us would not be warm and welcoming and want to help people. Everybody in the sidebar knows that I would give you the shirt off my back to try and help you, but I'm not going to just invite like somebody in my house. I don't know if he's a killer. I don't know anything about him. I want to have an idea who these people are. I think you should want to know who they are too. If you're going to allow them to come in and immediately start giving them free stuff and like, making sure that they're always feeding off the teat of government for the rest of their life, that they're a guaranteed welfare check voter. That's totally unfair to the people who live in this country who worked so hard to create a tax base and to build the foundations of the society and who've had a stake in it, like served in the military or, played some role in building this country, So it's just sort of disrespectful to just like cast their culture aside, don't you think? Like what they're trying to do in the UK. So let's get back into what's going on. And basically, this woman is saying that there's no proof that it was her post on Facebook or whatever that sparked the riots. And we all know that it was that was just made up by the government to say that some white woman sparked the riots by posting a racist post. But in reality, it was because 3 kids got killed by someone who looked like one of the immigrants from the migrant center down the street, who was a Rwandan second-gen UK guy. And so it just doesn't, that there's no way that they can ever prove that post did anything. It just was made up out of thin air. And they did the same thing with our embassy in Benghazi. They tried to blame it on a racist Facebook post, when in reality it was a botched CIA operation. We all know the story now. So anyways, the London police can't resist the urge to see censorship as a solution to the problems it can no longer solve, with so many jihadis and proponents of Sharia law in the country now. And so, unfortunately, the UK government issued a warning on X, think before you post. And that they quoted that from the Crown Prosecution Service about inciting hatred and online violence. So they're trying to say that the real reason they're having riots is because of a racist post. But the real reason is because the parents and locals and family members are outraged that there have been over 1,400 attacks on local young girls, in particular in this community around this immigration center. And finally, 3 more of them got killed by someone who looked like they were from the immigration center. And there were riots, and there's still riots. And that's what's going on. That's the reality. It's not about what the BBC government-run administrative state media and all the corporatized media is saying in the United States. That's not what's happening. That's not real. So what's happening is you've got a bunch of pissed off people, and they want their government to control the flow of immigration. They want to stop the UK and Canada from this terrible record of free speech that they have, and all of these pretextual reasons now to pass more law. Now they're going to pass a law to make it illegal to post certain things on Twitter. And they're going to try to make it illegal to even have Twitter in the UK, mark my words, to get back at Elon Musk for allowing free speech. They'll come up with some hate speech regulation, and they'll try to get it before The Hague to try to somehow punish Elon Musk. That's the kind of people that you guys are dealing with over there in the UK right now. These people are hardcore globalists, and they don't even have any pride in their own heritage. That's what makes a lot of people upset. They're not even honoring their own heritage, for crying out loud. So in the UK, insulting someone or disagreeing with your government can be a crime. It's not just civil defamation like it would be in the United States. This area of law is foreign to most U.S. personal injury attorneys like myself, and that's why I wrote this article. And so, again, full circle, we've been on this mission for a while now. So treaties are going to play a role in whether or not Elon Musk or even myself could be extradited to the United Kingdom. So we know that even with the treaty, the court system and the justice system will have some say. And we went over that earlier, and you can play back the video if you want to go back over that. So extrajudicial actions such as extraditions are not straightforward and involve a complex web of laws and treaties. But as I told you earlier, the principle of dual criminality requires that the act be considered a crime in both requesting and requested countries. So hopefully you guys understand what that means. The dual criminality thing would have to mean that it would also have to be hate speech in America to say that the UK government are a bunch of wankers and that all of the immigrants are terrorists, right? If you said that in the United States, that's nothing's going to happen. Well, probably Zuck would try to have you banned, right? Because they're just like the globalists. They want to ban anybody who engages in free speech that they disagree with. And so that would be the only real difference is the UK right now, we don't have dual criminality, but we have seen that certain states are trying to make certain conduct be characterized as hate speech in order to restrict speech and make it criminal. And so if enough, like on the campuses, like if enough campus culture warriors get on the bench, get appointed to judgeships and get into positions of power, you can see that slowly changing to where it would be a dual criminality. And that's why it's very important that we fight against this woke culture, because it's basically cultural Marxism. It's very important that we battle against that, because what we don't want is for our fundamental rights and unalienable rights to be squashed to where we become like the British. We do not want to be subjugated like the British people. What a terrible way to live, to be thrown in jail for making a post and then have the government just falsely out of thin air say, oh, it was your post that's responsible for these riots, even though there's no way we can prove it. And then, of course, they want to, make it look like Russian disinformation. They're still riding the Russian disinformation thing. Dude, people are pissed off because their kids are constantly getting attacked. And it was just bound to happen that eventually there were going to be riots. And that's what happened in Ireland. So right now, we don't have the dual criminality that would require a Facebook post or a Twitter post in America to fall to the level of dual criminality in the United Kingdom. So in order to make it more clear to you, I kind of broke it down. First of all, there has to be a legal framework to make that happen. The U.S. and the UK do have distinct legal structures governing freedom of speech and anti-terrorism. I mean, UK really doesn't have free speech, neither does Canada. But we do have very similar laws on anti-terrorism. But the First Amendment of the United States offers broad protections for speech, but UK laws offer more stringent regulations against hate speech and incitement. And that's what the left is trying to do in the United States. They're trying to make anything they disagree with considered to be hate speech, or because it insults them, right? Or it's hateful. Anything they disagree with is violent. And so they'll reclassify the word violent. And now that can make you a potential domestic violent extremist, and therefore your Second Amendment rights could be infringed upon. And that is the framework that started under the Obama administration, and it's slowly progressing. And that's what's going on right now before our very eyes. Now, extradition treaties, we do have those. But any extradition request, as I discussed earlier, would have to meet stringent criteria and offer sufficient evidence of criminal activity. And then there would also have to be evidence and intent. Authorities would need to prove that the individual's online activities were not just free speech, but crossed into illegal behavior. And that's kind of where we get at, that would incite violence or material support for terrorism. And so, right now, the UK government doesn't even have that evidence, but they're trying to put this false narrative out there that, oh, this terrible racist tweet, that's what caused these people to riot, when it's not true. What caused them to riot is that their children, 10 of the kids got stabbed and 3 of them got killed by some dude who looked like he was from the immigration center. And there were 1,400 other kids that had other attacks against them prior to that. And people were getting arrested and shut up by the police for speaking out against this happening in their communities. And they got fed up with it. And they finally started to fight back. And so what does the UK police do? They try to say they're all just a bunch of racists. They don't want to address the fact that they're angry that their children are getting killed and attacked by a lot of these immigrants. And so it's just falling on deaf ears. And so they're finally starting to throw bricks at the cops. Now, ultimately, extradition heavily depends on whether the specifics of the case. It will hinge on actions that align with or violate international and local laws. And then cooperation between countries is necessary, but it also has to be balanced with individual rights, and it remains challenging. Well, it shouldn't remain challenging for us because America is a constitutional common law republic. And because of that, we have unalienable rights that were granted by a creator, as noted in the Declaration of Independence. And because of that, our rights can't be stripped away by government. We don't have a living constitution like they do in England that can be changed at whim. Our government is supposed to be bound by the chains of the Constitution. Say it again. So anyways, on my website, I did this pretty cool. I'll pop the link in the sidebar if you guys want to save it for later. But I did a pretty cool little breakdown of what's going on. And it just talks about the different evidentiary indictment type thresholds you'd have to meet in order to extradite someone. And right now, our free speech laws are just too strong. It would be very difficult for that London police chief to extradite one of us for our online activities, unless, it was like Al-Qaeda type stuff where it was really obviously, a terrorist organization, not just a bunch of people trying to get dangerous immigrants out of their neighborhoods. You can't just, call anybody a racist just because they want to have a safe neighborhood. It's totally unfair. It's an ad hominem attack, and it's not true. It's a lie. We're all for legal and safe immigration. Everybody is. I mean, there's no grand white supremacy conspiracy. We don't care about that stuff. We just care. We're just like you. We just want to have safe neighborhoods, and we want to be free, and we want you to be free too. So, anyways, treaties are going to govern the extradition. The United States and the United Kingdom do have bilateral extradition, and there was a law signed in 2003 that outlines extraditable crimes, and activities like posting opinions online probably don't meet that criteria. And even if they do, even if they are against or supportive of jihadi or Sharia law activists invited into the United States, that's the problem. Is that the locals are complaining that it's not necessarily just about immigration. They're kind of upset that the types of people that are coming in are supportive of the Sharia law thing. They're trying to create a Sharia law government within these societies they're moving into. And they're burning down churches and, praying in the streets in the middle of the day, closing down all the commerce. That's all Sharia law stuff. And the locals don't like it. Would you like it if they were doing that in your neighborhood when you're trying to cruise around town? Wouldn't you feel kind of scared if you saw a bunch of those dudes walking around with machetes? I mean, think about it. I mean, I think it's just a natural reaction. So they're going to be scared. Like when I was in Scotland, I didn't dress like a surfer. I bought Scottish attire. I got trainers from the local store, so I got me some trainers, and I got the track suits of the day, and I wanted to fit in and blend in. These dudes are wearing their Taliban outfits all around town and praying in the middle of the street. I mean, that's going to piss off the locals, of course. I mean, give me a break. Now, so the extradition treaty that was signed in 2003, it basically covers extraditable offenses that are punishable by more than 1 year of imprisonment in both countries. And then there has to be evidence presented to support it. And then the offense must be recognized as a crime in both jurisdictions. So if you get a far left president in power, they could very easily sign a law like that, because we know that Newsom and that whole crew, they want to censor us. When they lost Twitter, it really destroyed their empire of information. Twitter, now X, really destroyed the administrative state's stranglehold on information, and they still haven't recovered from that. And they want nothing more than to regain control over the 99% of the information like they had before. And it's just going to get worse, guys. And they're trying to use these pretextual arguments like, oh, there was a Twitter post. They always want to make sure it's on Twitter now, right? They don't want to do it on Facebook because Facebook gives them a lot of money. So they're going to always try to blame it on Musk and his free speech policy and how we need to restrict hate speech, and anything that they disagree with is hate speech and violent. And they'll pass laws to make it a crime to even post on Twitter to try to get back at Musk. Mark my words. That's coming next. Now, so the scary thing is, guys, is cyber activities can fall into a gray area. And we know that the government can just make shit up. They can just say that it was your post that caused that and get the media to run with it, their friends in the press to run with it. And that's all she wrote, like they did with the Benghazi thing, where they tried to blame it on a racist YouTube video when they knew that was a lie from the very beginning. That was the CIA cover story for that. Now, the bottom line is the London police can initiate extradition requests, but I don't think they're going to get anywhere here, at least not with our present Supreme Court, and not with all the patriots that are still left in our country. I don't think it's possible. But I think a dumbing down of our society with public schools within the next generation, this could very easily happen, that the United States would eliminate the First Amendment or reduce it to the point that anything the government or their friends disagree with is hate speech, like they've done in the United Kingdom. And that could very easily happen. And now it's called X. I know. Sorry about that, leader of my lion pride. I apologize. X it is. But anyways, so now, however, if you want to travel to the United Kingdom, that's a totally different story. Just like in communist China, they could just arrest you right on the spot. Sure. I mean, defamation laws, there's a lot of defamation in the United Kingdom that is like criminal. Like it's a criminal offense to defame someone. They have laws like that on the books. So they really, people, that's probably another reason why the Brits have a stiff upper lip. They got to be careful about what they say, right? Because they can get thrown in jail for it. And I don't want to ever live in a society like that. I'd rather you be able to cuss me out and insult me, anything like that. I'm all for that. If that's what it's got to take, get it out of your system, but be who you are as a human being. And, bottom line is all you're going to do is identify yourself anyways. And I'll know whether or not I want to do business with you. So it's a better policy to support free speech, because then we can differentiate whether we like each other, because people won't do business with each other unless they like and trust each other, right? So what a better way to find out who the person is you're dealing with than to have as much free speech as possible. So I invite all of you to give me a bunch of ones for free speech. And thanks, Brick Jonesy, for joining me in that as well. 1A all day, every day. That's the way it's got to be, guys. You just got to be able to say what you want to say when you want to say it. Obviously you don't want to yell fire in a crowded theater. You don't want to put people's lives at risk, but that's just part of being a good person. And that's from having a good mom and dad who reared you up properly, that taught you manners. I mean, my kids know, my son knows to always open a door for the ladies, always walk on the side of traffic to keep her safe, and just basic niceties and courtesies. Being humble and act with humility. And that's another reason why he's in judo, because he's learning that Japanese samurai spirit. And that's the way you got to have that. You got to have the dad pushing for that, and you got to have the mom pushing, giving the love and the matronly thing. And that's going to build a strong society. So at the end and in closing, guys, all I have to say is, well, hold on a minute. If you want to learn a little bit more about me in my journey of how I became a lawyer on the law study program without any undergrad or law degree, this is not the book that is this physical book that I have is a dry run because they're so expensive, man. I'm trying to get prices on getting them bound, so I had a couple dry runs done. It's going to be an ebook, but this other book's going to probably run around 40 or 50 bucks. The ebook I'm selling for like $19.99. And here I'm going to just share with you my YouTube channel. Just give me 1 second. Ay, man. Saturday night. Now here I am doing this crazy stuff, huh, guys? So if you go to my YouTube homepage, my channel page, right? And I'll put this in the sidebar as well. Just give me 1 second. And you click right here on more. See where it says more? This will drop down and there's a link for PayPal right there. And if you want, you can get that. And I encourage you to get a copy for your friends and your family members because it's an inspirational story of how I was able to do it. I was an entrepreneur before that, always in sales and marketing, and just really, was on fire to become an attorney. And I had to find a way to do it. And I just figured it out and found several lawyers to study under and ended up becoming a lawyer on a program called the Law Study Program. And ended up taking the bar exam and passed. And had also passed the baby bar like Kim Kardashian. I think she finally did on her third attempt, and ultimately became an attorney. And so in my book, I talk about the different states that offer similar programs. And I talk about, the benefits as well as the non-benefits of, you got to be a self-starter to do something like this. You can't, if you feed off the energy of a classroom, you won't do well. This is my Marine Corps training I credit a lot of my success to becoming a lawyer to that, the discipline that I learned from that. But if you can find a good mentor to study under, it's a great idea. And again, it's called My Journey to Becoming a Practicing Lawyer with No Law Degree or Undergrad. And it's the first edition. But this is what I just showed you is a mock-up of the actual soft cover that at some point will sell. What you'll be purchasing on PayPal will be what I email you as a digital ebook, but it'll be cool. And I got some cool pictures of me in there and stuff. I think one of them from when I graduated boot camp, which is kind of cool. Graduated PFC, which is kind of cool. Making PFC out of boots, kind of a big deal. So, hey, man, yeah, we got 245 people in here. I think I saw like almost 400 earlier. That's kind of cool, right, Brick? And it says, and then Jilly V says, I need to get a narrator. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know. Yeah, standing on the shoulders of giants. That's right, man. Well, anyways, so hopefully you guys had a good time. I think I'm not going to be on tomorrow. I want to go to the gym in the morning, and I want to, I got a bunch of work to do. I got a bunch of files I need to catch up on. I've got 1,000 documents that I have to review and bill for. So I'm just like trying to emotionally get prepared for that. So be careful what you wish for, guys, if you do want to become a lawyer, because especially if you have your own practice, because it's a huge responsibility. And if you care about your clients like I do, it's a full-time job, 24/7. So anyways, my birthday was pretty awesome. Leader of my Lion Pride. It was great because I got to spend time with my wife, my son, my daughter, and our brother-in-law, who flew up here from El Salvador to help us move because we had to move to a different place and bigger place. So everything just kind of hit at once. So it was nice to just take that time. But unfortunately, I had a couple of beers and I'm paying the price for it, man. I made a commitment that I'm going to stop all form of alcohol consumption as of yesterday. And so guys, wish me luck. I'm already taking the creatine and doing all the protein drinks and all that stuff, trying to get myself cleared out. And with that being said, you're welcome, Jilly V. I'm really glad you guys are all joining me all the time. And if you want to support me, man, yeah, you're right, Mama Lion. It is yuck. It's terrible. It's just it's terrible. Yes, protein shakes, leader of my Lion Pride. That's right. Thanks, guys. Well, look, and everybody in the sidebar, like I said, you guys should all be reaching out to each other and trying to form parallel systems and working with each other to make the world a better place. Get out from under this demonic Luciferian corporate system. You know, stop shopping at Target. Boycott places that don't value family values. Boycott people that try to force their wicked culture on you. You don't need to spend any money on them. Just don't do it. Build your own parallel systems. You can use a 3D laser printer and make a bunch of cool stuff and sell it, right? You can do all that same crap they're doing at Target, but have a patriotic business and do it that way. You can do it, guys. Trust me. You can. I'll pay a little bit more to not have to buy from some wicked, evil, demon-run corporate business structure that treats babies and children like they're just byproducts, like they're just throwaways, you know, by people that frequented Epstein Island. I don't want to have anything to do with those guys. So anyways, you guys, love y'all. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. I know I didn't do the Where Are Your Papers video tonight. I just got really focused on the Irish one. So take a look again at the video if you get a chance to watch it again. Look at what Ireland's doing. I think it makes more sense. Just stem the flow. Try to get people integrated into your society. Stop letting people come in and try to change your society. When you invite a guest in, they need to adopt your culture, not the other way around, guys. So just remember that. That's how you keep your community safe, and you know what's going on, right? And yeah, hopefully I'll be able to make enough money on the ebook to where I can focus more of my time on YouTube. And although I do like your super chats and your coffees, the only thing that I really appreciate the most, I appreciate it all, trust me. I mean, nobody's going to say no to any of that. But I really like it that when you guys become members, because I'll share stuff in the back end with you that I don't generally want to share with everybody publicly, and get an idea of who's on Team MPE, because I want to start, doing some nonprofit events and some fundraisers and stuff where we can make change with BZ Watchdog with these public records and government accountability operations. This was just an important show for me because you can see how our present administration in the United States and the present administration in the United Kingdom are on a mission to try and treat anything they disagree with as hate speech or disinformation. Even if it's true, they'll get a fact checker to lie and say there's something in that article that you didn't even talk about, and then they'll base it on the thing that you didn't even talk about to declare the story false. And when you have low information voters and kids who have been brainwashed in these public schools to think that anything the government says is true and that CNN is the only true source of information, for example, they'll believe that that's true. They'll believe what they're told, just like in communist China. It's systematic programming, like what went on in Eastern Europe under the Stasi in East Germany. Same deal. It's exactly what's going on with our school system right now, with big tech and they're in California trying to, the schools and the government gets to decide what truth and false. The government gets to decide what disinformation. Are you freaking? Government gets to decide what disinformation is. Think about that, guys. Think really deep and hard about that. Anyways, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. They probably will. And guys, I think that I broke this story. I think I'm the only lawyer who broke down the extradition and the dual criminality issues that Musk would be faced with, and the reasoning why he wouldn't be deported. So if any of you guys know Elon Musk, let him know that I am the first lawyer that stood up for him and provided a defense for him online. Give me a bunch of ones for my defense of free speech and Elon Musk not getting deported to the United Kingdom for inciting a riot. All right, guys, take care. Semper Fi, do or die, guys. Thanks for joining me again. Brick, leader of my line, Julie V, all these guys, Lion Pride, Miss Tarot, call them now. Call everybody, Julie V, call them. And what's the matter? You, bunch of ones. Thank you, guys. Take care. Hopefully I'll see you over at Chili DeCastro's channel. I want to go check and see if he's got a live going on before I crash out for the night. Again, guys,